The Grey Wardens have been the heroes of Dragon Age since the inception of the franchise. We've fought as one of them and alongside them. But in Inquisition, things took a darker turn for the Wardens. Some really bad decisions were made by the Orlesian chapter, and if your onboarding point for the franchise was Inquisition, you might not think very highly of them, which is completely understandable. Was Warden Commander Clarel entirely in the wrong, or was there some merit to what she was doing? Was her decision reflective of what the Grey Wardens stand for in the first place? What do they even stand for? And most importantly, have they failed? Does Thedas even need the Grey Wardens anymore? Let's check it out. What's up, guys? I am SJ from 10 Points of Slashing, and today we're going to be diving into the Grey Wardens. As we all prep for Veilguard, the choice of our first character's starting faction is looming ahead of us. And while I've known since that gameplay leak in 2023 that I was going to go Grey Warden on my first run, I recently got to thinking, is this a group of people that I'd feel good aligning with after what happened in Inquisition? Was Clarel just a special case, or is she an indication of the path of desperation that the Wardens are moving down? In order to talk about whether or not Clarel's decisions aligned with the Order's ideals as a whole, I think it's important to take a look at who the Grey Wardens are and what we as the players have seen of them thus far. So I'll start by giving a brief overview of the history and concept of the Wardens themselves before going game by game in the Dragon Age franchise and talking about how the Order has manifested to us thus far. After that, we'll jump right into it and ask some tough questions. Thank you so much for coming along for the ride, and I hope you enjoy this video. Ladies and gentlemen, the Grey Wardens. The Grey Wardens began as a solution to a problem. That problem being the First Blight, which I'm gonna summarize as best I can without going into a whole ass history lesson. In 395 Ancient, the Deep Roads were suddenly and violently overrun by horrifying creatures that essentially carried a disease. When this disease spread to any other living creature, it converted them into the same monstrosities that carried the disease. This was the first the world saw of what would eventually be known as Darkspawn. 90 years passed of humanity, elvenkind, and dwarvenkind alike all struggling to survive against the overwhelming hordes of these monstrosities. 90 years. Multiple generations of people were born, lived entire lives, and died during the First Blight, as it completely ravaged Thedas. During this time, it was discovered that the Darkspawn Horde was essentially being organized and led by a blight-corrupted dragon, eventually referred to as an archdemon. The archdemon was killed, several times in fact, but it kept coming back, and nobody really understood how, until the Wardens. A group of the Tevinter Imperium soldiers met at what became Weishaupt Fortress in the Anderfels, a desert region that hadn't been as devastated by the Blight as some regions of Thedas. It was here that the Grey Wardens were founded and the joining ritual conceived. Men, elves, and dwarves came together from all walks of life, with the Wardens barring absolutely no one from entry. Soldiers, criminals, peasants, anyone that had the fortitude and willpower to fight the Darkspawn Horde was allowed to call themselves a Grey Warden. And for the next 100 years, the Wardens spearheaded a brilliant offensive against the Darkspawn that ultimately resulted in the death of Dumat, the archdemon of the First Blight, and the retreat of the remaining Darkspawn forces back into the Deep Roads. Victory was achieved solely because of the Grey Wardens and their connection to the Blight as a result of the joining ritual. And in the 1,000 years and 4 more Blights that followed, the Grey Wardens were always the ones to end the threat. They were always the only ones that could end the threat. The only way to kill an archdemon is to essentially cause a reality-bending paradox. Two souls cannot exist within the same vessel, and when an archdemon is slain, its soul jumps to the nearest blighted creature. The joining ritual that every Grey Warden goes through involves them imbibing a tiny, fractional amount of the blight itself, thus technically becoming blighted while still maintaining their soul. If a Grey Warden kills an archdemon, when that archdemon's soul attempts to jump into the Warden, the two souls collide and are both destroyed in the ensuing chaos. And the Wardens discovered this accidentally. This was never their direct intent. and they had no idea that something like this would happen. They took in the Blight in an attempt to learn their enemy through straight up blood magic. Whether blood magic is good or bad, right or wrong, is for you to decide, but what every Grey Warden drinks in the joining is a mixture of darkspawn blood, lyrium, and herbs that is all magically prepared so that it's possible to ingest. So in the context of Clarel, I think it is super important to consider that from the Warden's inception, they have resorted to some real crazy shit in order to stop the Blight, including blood magic, which, to be fair, at the time was pretty common in Tevinter, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. With that incredibly condensed overview of who and what they are out of the way, let's go game by game and talk about what we see from the Grey Wardens. First and foremost, origins. The entire game is, obviously, about the hero of Ferelden and his or her quest to end the Fifth Blight. This particular blight happened right alongside some pretty brutal political upheaval in Ferelden, perpetrated by this dude, who for some reason nobody could figure out was a bad guy just from looking at his face. Look at this evil motherfucker, dude. We don't really see much of who and what the Grey Wardens are beyond what you choose to do, though we do get a glimpse of the Orlesian Wardens through this absolute fucking badass toward the end of the game. If Duncan is our Warden daddy, this is the dude that really steps up to be our father after Duncan leaves to get milk. Riordan explains to us what we have to do to end the Blight and goes out like an absolute champ. Yes, I know the actual pronunciation is Riordan, but they say it like this in the game. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what to tell you. I was going to say that Riordan doesn't get nearly enough credit, but apparently, according to the World of Thedas Volume 2, as of the events of Inquisition, there's a statue of Riordan in the Market District in Dinnerem, so hell yeah, brother. That said, I think Riordan is a perfect example of what the Wardens stand for. Victory at any cost. In fact, victory at the ultimate cost, which I think is even more profound if I'm being honest. And Riordan pays that cost grounding the Archdemon so that the surviving Wardens can finish the job. Anyway, now that I'm done sucking him off, let's move on to Dragon Age 2. We honestly don't see much of the Grey Wardens in... We don't see much of... We don't see... Stroud's fucking mustache, dude. Jesus Christ. We don't see much of the Wardens in Dragon Age 2, beyond the group that's led by Stroud that can potentially save Bethany/Carver from Darkspawn corruption by conducting the joining and Grey Wardening them. But we also encounter Stroud and his mustache and his Warden allies fighting off Qunari at the end of Act 2, where he rather ominously tells us that his current mission prevents him from being able to help out in Kirkwall, and that even if he could, he wouldn't, because Wardens shouldn't intervene in political conflicts. We never really find out what his mission was. I mean, we can definitely make assumptions. However, it's never confirmed what he was doing. But I think this is a great illustration of the Warden's immovable commitment to their mission, even outside of wartime. Because defending the world from the Blights does supersede every single political conflict that could possibly happen in the world. It supersedes everything. Over time, the people of the world forget the horrors of the Blight. But the Grey Wardens don't, and Stroud understands that. Even when there are horrible things unfolding right in front of you, the horrible things that the Blight can cause are worse. And there has to be people that make preventing those their priority above everything else. And finally, we have Clarel and the events of Inquisition. After getting reports that every single Grey Warden in Orlais has started to hear the calling... Wait, shit, I never talked about the calling. God damn it. After getting reports that every single Grey Warden in Orlais has started to hear the calling, Clarel, Warden Commander of Orlais, quite frankly freaks out a little bit, which is totally reasonable. In her panic, Lord Livius Aramond, another quite obviously insanely evil motherfucker, reaches out to Clarel and convinces her to... God, I hate this sentence. And convinces her to use blood magic to summon a demon army to invade the Deep Roads, find the remaining archdemons, and kill them before they wake from their slumber to kick off more blights. We're gonna pick that apart in a minute, but First, I'd really like to point out that this plan is insanely interesting to me. The implication here is that A, the Wardens know where the remaining archdemons are, and B, the Wardens know that there are only 2 of them left, thus only 2 blights left. Unless, of course, the last 2 wake up at the same time and cause a super blight. I just find that really interesting. Anyway, back to Clarel. So, let's jump into the questions at the top of this video, starting out with, did Clarel fail the Grey Wardens? To reiterate, she used blood magic to summon a demon army, with the intent being to invade the Deep Roads with it and stop the remaining blights from happening altogether. Blood magic is a form of magic that is forbidden by basically every society in Thedas, yes, including Tevinter, because it A, relies on sacrifice, and B, it can take the agency away from people. You can use blood magic to control people. However, again, the entire order is literally built on blood magic. Without blood magic, the Grey Wardens would never have taken down Dumat and ended the First Blight. The Wardens, and to be totally honest, the world, owes its continued existence to blood magic 5 times over. And ignoring that entirely, she used it for good. She used it specifically for the purpose of invading the Deep Roads and carrying out the mission of the Grey Wardens. Stop the blights at any cost, right? I'm generally a big fan of use the forces of evil to accomplish good things. That's pretty much the underlying theme for all of my D&D characters. So did Clarel fail the Wardens? Abso-fucking-lutely she did. There's no question in my mind about it. Clarel is the Warden Commander of Orlais. Warden Commander is basically the next rank down from First Warden, which is the overall leader of the entire order of Grey Wardens. The First Warden is the person that is in charge of everybody. The Warden Commander is the person that is in charge of each individual nation's wardens. This little operation that Ahriman pitched to Clarel, raise an army to invade the Deep Roads in force and end the blights before they happen, demon army or otherwise, this is something that the First Warden should know about. This is something that the entire order should know about, and if approved, this is something that the entire order should be involved in. This is something that the First Warden should contact individual governments about. Like, Clarel's decision to keep this Orlais internal was absolutely batshit crazy. Whether she was manipulated or not, her role as Warden Commander is not the role she used to have as a normal Grey Warden. Her job isn't stop the blights at any cost anymore. It ceased to be that the moment she took the rank. Her job now is to take care of her people, to make decisions, to lead. Sacrifice all of my people to stop the blight, no matter how noble, is not the right call in this particular scenario. At least not without a goddamn phone call to the First Warden. This kind of thing needs more than regional approval. This needs worldwide approval, dude. I cannot get behind Clarel's decision here, and I definitely would not have made it if I were in her shoes, no matter how rushed I felt. I get it, her and all of her people are hearing the calling, that's terrifying. But like, really, contact the First Warden. I don't give a fuck who's at my doorstep saying they have a plan to end the blights. I gotta go call my boss, or at least a neighboring Warden Commander. Now, with all that said, I'll drop the devil's advocate bomb here and say that we're never actually told one way or the other if she contacted the First Warden. She very well might have, and the First Warden might have said, "Go ahead, Clarel," we don't know. If that is the case, then the answer to the next question is super easy, but I'm definitely just going to operate under the assumption that Clarel went completely rogue here and kept this all internal to the Orlesian Wardens, unless we're directly told otherwise at some point. Clarel absolutely failed, as a Grey Warden and as a leader, quite frankly. Moving on to the next question, has the Order itself failed? Have the Grey Wardens failed? I think that after discussing Clarel, you probably have a pretty good idea of my answer to this, but I think it's important to talk about anyway. No, the Order itself has not failed. And I think this is a great illustration of a theme that is seen constantly throughout Dragon Age. The actions of the few do not always represent the beliefs of the many. We see this theme everywhere throughout the games. We see entire groups of people persecuted for the actions of the few. We see devastating wars start because of the actions of the few. We even see it from both sides. We see genuinely good people doing genuinely good things in organizations that are known for their brutality and oppression. We see evil people doing evil things that come from that life of oppression. Dragon Age is all about that moral ambiguity, that gray area between right and wrong, and I love it. I just can't get enough of this shit in general. But as I said, we don't get to condemn the entire order of Grey Wardens for the actions of just the Orlesian group of them. I can't wait to see what kind of worldwide stigma was attached to the Order after the events of Inquisition. I'm sure there's some pretty negative thoughts around them as a whole after Clarel's little party, but again, this kind of thing just serves to reinforce that theme, especially for those of us that played Origins and loved being a Warden. It'll be fascinating if we open up Veilguard, roll up a character with a Warden origin, and then find out that we're basically pariahs now due to Clarel's actions. And on that note, the last point I'd like to discuss before closing out, does Thedas even need the Grey Wardens anymore? I guess this question is kind of coming from a place that's both sort of literal and figurative. Like, if the Blights are indeed banished elven god related, Veilguard might just wrap that up for us. Boom, problem solved, no more Blights, thus no more need for an organization to fight the Blights. We might literally not need the Grey Wardens after Veilguard. But on the more, I don't know, ideological foo-foo side of things, does Thedas need an organization that's been proven to be as corruptible as the Wardens? An organization that is so singularly hell-bent on their mission that their senior leaders are susceptible to straight-up manipulation by straight-up bad guys. If the Inquisition hadn't shown up to save the day at Adamant Fortress, things would not have turned out so great, to say the least. To both of those things, the literal and the foo-foo, I'm going to say, yes, I think Thedas needs the Grey Wardens. Whether their purpose is to fight the Blights or just to be a bastion against evil, I think Thedas needs them. Because just like mages or Templars or anything in Dragon Age, the actions of the few do not represent the beliefs of the many, and with a driving force as drastic and severe as saving the world from the forces of evil at any cost, of course there's going to be those outliers, those people that take things too far. But overall, Thedas is a world that is rife with evil, and it needs a force of people that don't owe their allegiance to a god or a set of ideals or anything at all other than the people of Thedas. And that's who I believe the Grey Wardens are, above and beyond anything else. Above and beyond fighting the Blights or keeping the Darkspawn at bay, the Grey Wardens exist to protect the people of Thedas for the people of Thedas. Not for Andraste, not for the Archon, not for some other figure, for the people. I hope that my insane passion for the world and storytelling of Dragon Age came through in this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope you feel inspired in some way to go back and play Dragon Age again. Maybe lean more into the Grey Warden stuff with your role-playing. That is, after all, the entire reason 10 Points of Slashing makes content, to share our passion and experiences playing these games so that you guys feel inspired to dive back into them and have your own fun and incredible experience. And I hope you tell me about it. Please drop me a comment, share your experience with me, and just let me know what your thoughts are. And above all else, thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching and supporting the channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.